What impact do you think President Obama's policies are having on this nation? Well, Dr. Alan Keyes, former ambassador, former presidential candidate, and the man who ran against Obama in 2004 for the Illinois seat in the U.S. Senate, he's our guest on today's program. Welcome to the Voice of Resistance.
Those who forsake the law praise the wicked. Those who uphold the law resist them. Welcome to the Voice of Resistance. Here's your host, Randall Terry.
Hello, friend. It is I, your servant, Randall. This is the fifth installment of a 5-part series where I had a long sit-down interview with Dr. Alan Keyes. 90 minutes, covering a wide variety of topics. Today is the final installment. I want to encourage you, when this program is over, to go, if you've missed any of the episodes, go to our website and watch the interview in its entirety. I also invite you to let your friends know about this show. Dr. Keyes has been involved in politics and has served as a U.S. ambassador, been a television show host. He's been around. And he, at almost age 65, has a lot to offer to us. And today is the final installment of what he offered in a 90-minute interview. I hope that you enjoy it, and I hope that you tell your friends about it.
And I'm going to shock a lot of people, and maybe a lot of people dislike me when I say it.
This is the number one obstacle.
The number one obstacle to restoring the Declaration understanding in America is the Republican Party.
Hold on. Yeah? Hold on. Jump back. Slap myself. The single greatest impediment.
Right. To restoring the understanding of God that was there in the Declaration to the politics and way of life of the United States is the Republican Party.
Explain it in 2 minutes.
In 2 minutes.
3 minutes.
Because everybody would expect me to say Obama. Obama's the enemy.
No, let me say,
let me finish what I'm saying. I just started something. No, you have to let me finish.
I want to just say one thing and then you talk.
Okay, go ahead.
An enemy outside of your camp makes you vigilant. An enemy in your camp makes you dead because he can cut your throat in the night, poison your food in the day.
But what does that mean?
The Republican Party. In other words,
I'm echoing. You're just going ahead. You often do, and that's fine. But
it's a gift.
The point being that Obama is the enemy that we recognize as the enemy, right? And when we look at Obama, everybody, as a matter of fact, in that sense, Obama has been almost like a gift to a lot of people around America. He's waking them up. He's making them see that tyranny is possible, that it's coming, that it's already at work, that it's trying to kill cattle and destroy families, that it's hard at work to destroy the moral foundation. Obama is the enemy that we recognize, okay? What is the Republican Party? Republican Party, actually, they tell us that they're the guys defending the walls. They're the guys who are going to keep the walls in repair, that are going to send the troops out to stand on the walls and keep the enemy out, and so forth and so on. If it turns out that they're lying, and that in point of fact they're collaborating with the enemy, who poses the greatest danger? Because the people they're all ready to do what's necessary, but if you put them under the guidance of people collaborating with the enemy, they're going to send you to the front gate when the enemy's at the back gate. They're going to tell you to eat this food when the enemy has poisoned it, okay? And the Republican Party denotes itself as the party of the collaborators because it worships money. It worships money, it worships financial success, and it worships the power of material things. This is not what America was founded on, much to the lying screed that is out there amongst a lot of people. Okay? America was founded on an understanding of man's relationship with God for the sake of right and justice. And that was what Lincoln was about. Okay? And he even says in one of his most famous speeches, if all the wealth built up by the centuries of bondsman toil must be spent, okay, so that justice will be satisfied, then as it was said, 3,000 years ago, so still it must be said, the judgments of the Lord are true. and righteous altogether. That was the founding president of the Republican Party. How far have we come from that to Karl money-worshipping Rove? How far have we come from that to Rand, freedom is God, libertarian Paul? Okay? No, God is God. And God rules. And by those rules, justice and right are established. And for the sake of those who choose to accept and follow justice and right, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of those who are governed by the laws of nature and nature's God, the righteous. Well, it's about time the righteous came together, but the Republicans are doing everything in their power to make sure that doesn't happen. They're doing everything in their power to intimidate, to strike fear into the heart of, to make bashful, to lure and seduce away from God those who profess to be in the primacy of their existence, focused on God's will.
So what do we do?
Well, I actually have a practical approach that I've been pursuing for months. I think 2014 election is critical. I think Obama actually becomes the focal point around which you can rally people to resist the tyranny that is coming, and everything about it, including the rejection of God that is involved in it. But the Republicans won't do it. Have you noticed that? They don't want to make Obama the focal point of the election in 2014, even though that would probably galvanize people across every line, race and everything else, you know, except possibly for black Americans, I don't know. You would find responsive chord in every other group in America saying, oh, this guy's not what we thought. This guy's a liar. This guy's an incompetent. This guy has been attacking our troops and destroying our security and bowing to our enemies and helping those who are trying to destroy us. Yeah, do I want... So what? I often ask people, think to yourself, how many people do you know who, if they could snap their fingers and Barack Obama would no longer be president, would snap their fingers? I think we'd have people snapping their fingers in every place, every Grayson Creek. Now, hold on.
Sounds like
so
a
there is a way,
cafe.
there is a peaceful way that doesn't require violence and bullets and mob demonstrations like over there in the Arab world. All these people talking about we need an Arab Spring. I am not an Arab. I don't need an Arab anything. Okay, I don't mind the Arabs, but I don't want their spring. We don't need an
Irish
Spring, let me say
but
this.
not an Arab Spring, no.
We don't need an Arab Spring. We need an American fall. We need an American autumn, okay? And America, autumn means go to the polls and vote. And this time we need to go to the polls and vote to remove Barack Obama and Biden and all their collaborators and cronies from office. Oh, we can't do that. We vote for Congress. No, put the right Congress in, guess what you get? A Congress that will impeach and remove Barack Obama as the Constitution allows for at any stage in his tenure. Okay, make that the focus, and I'm doing it.
You have two choices. I mean, you can try to raise your children by design, or you will raise them by default. There are no perfect parents. We're going to get it wrong sometimes. If we have a plan, we've got a better chance of getting it right in the long run.
There is something deep within the heart of every human being that longs for parental acceptance and approval. When does a boy become a man?
Get a group of guys around and ask them that question.
I don't think there's a certain age. Some men stay boys their whole life.
I would say, 16, 18 years old?
Wow, that's a good question.
When they get bar mitzvah.
Well, I think when he has a child. So I just became at 56, 56 years old.
Without the power of the Holy Spirit changing us and giving us power over our sin, we can't hope to be the dads that our kids need us to be.
Initiate and cooperate in the process necessary to impeach Obama and bring him to trial before the Senate. Okay? And I'm working with people who are building that up. And I keep asking folks, what if by the time the election rolls around, 1 million people have signed that pledge? How many candidates do you think will want to go and sign the candidates pledge, because they'll be able to collect tens of thousands of votes in their district just by doing so, right? Now, admittedly, I would have to confess, most of the people who'd be tempted to do that would be Republicans, I bet. See? But they're Republicans that the party is not working with to unite behind an impeachment effort, because they're cowards or they're collaborators. Okay? But the people can demand it at the polls in the way they use their vote, but they command it before Election Day by saying, we're going to use our vote this way, and if you ignore it, you're going to lose our votes. Okay? So 1 million people would be a big achievement. If you got 2 or 3 million, which is possible on the internet, you know, things can pick up hits in days that amount to several million, much less in the months we have left before the election. So if you really started to focus people on this and said, what's your heart's desire? My heart's desire is that Barack Obama and Biden and all these totalitarian, commie, leftist individuals will be out of office and stop destroying our country. How many Americans do you think would agree with that statement? I bet there are millions upon millions upon millions of them. And that if even 2 or 3 million of those millions were to sign the pledge saying we demand from a candidate that you impeach, and if you don't sign this pledge, we won't vote for you. That would get all their attention. And nothing the Republicans did with their money, nothing they did with their infrastructure, nothing the godless, grassroots-hating leadership does with its remonstrances and fear-mongering would change that one iota. And so I think it's a way to do an end run around a political system that no longer wants to represent or thinks it needs to represent the people of this country. And by doing that, we would reassert what really ought to govern America. Because what ought to govern America is the strength of what's going on among the people themselves at the grassroots. Not money power, banking power, political power, bureaucratic power. None of that's supposed to govern this country. The people of the country are making a demand based on their right understanding of what is required to secure their rights as they come from God, are supposed to be in charge of America. And so if people with that kind of mind pulled together, signed the pledge to impeach, and made that demonstration, if it grew to 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, by the time we got to the last 2 weeks of the election, it would change the political landscape for good.
Are you going to run for president again?
I think all talk of 2016 is premature by me or anybody else. They want to focus us on 2016 so that we won't do anything before then. And I think some people on the wrong side of things are convinced that they will have created enough facts in this country that it will be impossible to undo them by the time we get to 2016, even if the unlikely were to happen and the Republicans were actually to nominate a candidate who reflected conservative, God-fearing tenets, which they haven't done in at least the last 2 elections, meaning no offense to Romney and McCain. If they take it, I won't care, though. Because I am not talking about their religion. I'm talking about the stands that they both
Public
took
policy, yeah.
on public policy issues that were identical to the stands of Barack Obama we have all learned to love to hate.
Dr. Alan Keyes, I count you as a friend. I count you as a great American hero, and I thank you. I thank you publicly for the critical moments in my tumultuous life when you stepped forward and stood near me, put your arm around me, both in reality and metaphorically. I am in debt to you. I have a debt of honor to you, and I'm just delighted to call you a friend and a compatriot, and hope we get to see some good people in heaven together.
Well, I appreciate the debt you feel to me, Randall, but I feel indebted to you, but not for my own sake only. I feel indebted to you for the times when you have stood when nobody else would, in the places where we must stand to save this country. You know, it is said of a physics principle that if you give me a place to stand, I can move the world. Was that Archimedes or somebody? No, I think in terms of our world, if you give us a person willing to stand for God, that person can move the world. And so many times in my lifetime, you have been that person and you still are. And I thank God for you.
Thank you. Love you. Thank you so much, Dr. Alan Keyes. Friend, don't go away. I've got a couple things that I want to share with you that I believe will be a benefit. Do you want to have knowledge, wisdom, discernment? If so, you have to read good books on theology, history, books that look at the lives of great men and women. So to help you to become a more effective Christian, a better witness for truth, somebody who can engage in productive conversation that exhorts and edifies those that you speak with, we're going to do something crazy. We're offering you these 7 books for a gift of any size. You just pay for the shipping and handling, and then give whatever gift that you can, and we will send them to you. But just to make it a little bit more crazy, I will send you a second copy of my 3 books, autographed. You can give them as a gift to your pastor or to a family member and help extend truth and justice in the world. This is while supplies last. My wife and I, for 5 years, have been grinding our own wheat and baking our own bread from scratch. Within 2 hours, you can have fresh wheat in your hand and then piping hot bread come out of the oven. The most nutritious and delicious bread you will ever have. And we do it for under $1 a loaf. Call Paula's Bread and find out about this grain mill and the mixer and how it can save you money and change your life. You do not have to be a prophet to see that our country is in great danger, that ethically we are dying, that we have a spiritual disease. If you look at the ethics of the body politic, the ethics of culture, art, education, if you look at what is ethically dominating those fields, you see that usually, not always, thank God, but usually there is a move toward darkness, towards sensuality, towards evil in the ethical realm that touches on family, on human sexuality, on business, on finances, on education, on redistribution of wealth. I mean, I don't have to go any further. You get it. If we're going to get the country back into the hands of righteous men and women, if the levers of power are going to be in the hands of righteous men and women, we've got to get them there. We have to put them there. We have to elect them in situations where there is an election. And if we want big business to reflect godly values, then we are going to have to start the businesses, right, that don't fund Planned Parenthood, don't fund the godless agenda of certain people and movements in this country. In other words, it's going to take a lot of work. But before the work happens, there's going to have to be a transformation in our hearts. I am convinced that one of the reasons that we are steadily losing the country is because of the toxin of bread and circuses on one hand, and the shallowness that has come as a result of that in us. In other words, in our bread and circuses, we want more speed. We want it cheaper. We want it quicker. The dollar menu, yes, but I want it faster. And I want to laugh quicker with my circuses. And I want to be entertained. And I want to be distracted. And it makes us jittery. It makes us so we can't focus. And it makes us shallow. And so one of the impacts of this bread and circus poison in the body politic and that's impacting our lives is that we fall prey to hot button issues. We fall prey to people who are using things, movements, principles that we cherish. They're using them as hot button issues to get our vote, to get our volunteer time, and to get our money. Those are the 3 main ways that people who are involved in political battles or the culture war battles can utilize people, for good or for ill. The vote, volunteer time, resources, money, and other resources that we might give. For us to get the righteous back into positions of power so that they're not an anomaly, but that they are really the up and coming, that there is a true political revival going on of life and liberty and justice and law under God. For that to happen, we are going to have to dig deeper. We are going to have to think more clearly. We're going to have to ask a lot of follow-up questions. So for example, if somebody says, I'm pro-life, We don't just go, okay. We say, what does that mean? We ask, does that mean if a piece of legislation comes up that will make it a criminal act to kill a baby from conception until birth, that you would sign it, that you would vote for it with no exceptions? No rape and incest exception. See, we have to be willing to dig deeper and not be shallow. I've got to take a break. When we come back, one other closing thought about how we have gotten into this mess and what we're going to have to do to get out. Do you want to get America out of the hands of wicked and unjust men and women who are destroying the republic before our eyes, and put leadership back into the hands of righteous men and women so that we don't die as a nation? Well, you're talking about social revolution, and there are rules in social revolution. We can look at the victorious social revolutions of the past, such as the end of slavery, the end of child labor, women's voting rights, the end of segregation, and so much more, and learn from their victories. Look at their actions, their images, their rhetoric, their sacrifices, and their final fruit. We will send you this series that originally cost $129, 7 books for students, 1 teacher's guide, if you'll give a gift of any size and just pay for shipping and handling. Take advantage of it today. It took me 14 years to write it. 4 rewrites, countless edits. I poured my heart and soul into Dragon Slayers. At points, a very inspiring and painful book to write. I encourage you to go to our website and look at the reviews that we have gotten from readers of this book, and then avail yourself. It's an allegory, and I promise you, you'll be inspired. One of the things that Dr. Keyes and I did not talk about, but I have covered in great detail on this program, is the malevolent effect of the 501c3 tax-exempt statutes on the Christian community and the political demise of America. There are 2 books that I want to urge you to get, actually a series. One of them is called Political Sermons of the American Founding Era. And the reason I want you to read this, to read some of the sermons, is because you will see that the founding of this republic was that sermons played a key role in the founding of the republic. People expected preachers to be political, all right? It was a part of the American experiment in self-government. The 501c3 tax-exempt status and its bit and bridle on the mouth of preachers in the last generation is a new phenomenon. And if we had that at the beginning of the Republic, there is every likelihood that the Republic would never have been born. Okay? They called American preachers who were supporting the revolution the Black Regiment, because they had such a massive impact on the thought of the American people, as well as recruiting people to stand for the colonies. The other series that I would encourage you to get is a 3-volume set called Patrick Henry, Life, Correspondence, and Speeches. This is one of my top 10 or top 20 series that I encourage people to get. And it will show you, again, the relationship between faith and preachers and government, civil government. And it'll show you what an American hero looked like at the founding of this republic. If we are going to get the republic back, part of what will have to happen is that Christian groups that are tax exempt will surrender it and go to another legal entity that allows them to raise money and then spend it effectively in the political cycles. Because the object of good government, or rather the object of our goal, if you will, of wanting to get this country back, means that we have to have good government. To have good government, you have to have good people in government. You have to have righteous men and women with the levers of power in their hands. So you can't impact an election cycle if you can't talk about the politics and the people who are running. It's just not possible. So I encourage you, get those books and read them. And then start to do a really intense analysis of where your money is going on political issues that go to groups that are 501c3 and can't really impact election cycles, all right? If it's a food shelter, a food kitchen or something, a homeless shelter, fine. But when it comes to politics, we need resistance, and that means we need to name names.